This webinar is brought to you by the Active Aging and Lifelong Learning Subcommittee. Hello and good afternoon. My name is Jeremy Sia and I am the chairperson for the Active Aging and Lifelong Learning Subcommittee. Today's webinar will be an hour long with 30 minutes for question and answers. You can type up your questions and you can vote questions that are of great interest to you. The next event is on the 27th of August from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. on the role of mindfulness in positive aging. Let me introduce our distinguished speaker for today. He is Professor Kwa Ee Hock. He is Tang Gyok Ying Professor of Psychiatry and Neuroscience and Senior Consultant Psychiatrist at NUS as well as Mind Care Clinic at Farrer Park Hospital. He is a member of the World Health Organization team for the global study of dementia. He was formerly head of psychological medicine and vice dean of the Faculty of Medicine at NUS, as well as CEO and medical director at the Institute of Mental Health, Singapore. Without much ado, let me hand over to Professor Kwa. Professor Kwa, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Before I begin, I wish to thank the Graduate Club for this invitation. I've spoken before in the club about 10 years ago, and I'm glad to share all our research to all of you. Now. Jeremy, you see the picture okay?
Yes, Prof.
Okay, all right. So this talk will be on the Age Well Everyday program from NUS, which is the first program on dementia prevention in Asia. Before I talked about our program, I would like to convey to all of you the good news of aging, because you often hear the bad news. People say that once you're above 60 years and above, you are of no economic value. And old people often seen are people who consume so much of the health services that you are sick and frail. And you see our moderator, Mr. Jeremy Sia, he's still working very hard. And for me, I'm 72. I'm still working, and many people in their 80s are still working. We're still working in the service sector and providing for care for other people. So and also most important thing is the life expectancy of people in Singapore has outgrown that of America or the UK. It seems strange that we often ask people from America and UK to give us talks on longevity, how to grow old and healthy. But we realize that in recent years, the health expectancy in Singapore has crossed 80 years. It's about 82 for the general population, and for women a bit longer, 84, and men about 80. So and this is much better than North America, which is about 76, and England about 78. However, there are some challenges as we grow older, and these are the rising tide of dementia, the demands on the health services, and then another big question that is not only pertinent to Singapore but the world, aging in place. As we grow older, is it possible for us to stay in our own house, or must we all be sent away to old people's home? What can we do then if you want to stay in your own place? And then the final area that we need to worry about is the escalating cost of healthcare. So this study which we conducted here in Singapore is of relevance because if you remain healthy for a long period of time, then the health cost will be much less for you and be able to give you a longer quality of life. We know that you can live longer period of life and keep yourself healthy. That would be something wonderful for not only the person, for the country also. It's no use growing old and be sick sick at the age of 60 and you go on for 20 years in sickness or in frailty, but you can live on for a long period of time healthy and enjoying life and good quality of life, that would be excellent. We know about the rising tide of dementia, and so some years ago, sometime in 1986, when we did our first study for the World Health, about 5,000 cases of dementia, and now it comes about 70,000, you know, and then it looks like it's going up. You know. I remember we invited one of the ministers, one of the government official to officiate a regional conference on aging, and the Ministry of Health presented a slide, something like that, going up. You know. Then the people from the World Health told me that you should advise your minister never to show this kind of slide because it means as though there's nothing you can do, that you continue to go up and up. You know. Because as researchers in the health sector, we must ask ourselves, can we bring this down? Can we plateau it or bring it down? Just like the pandemic. Cannot let it go higher and higher. Can we flatten it or bring it down? And we know that today, every day, there's about 7 cases of dementia in Singapore. Every day. Every year, we have 2,500 new cases. Let me repeat, 2,500 new cases. So if we cannot prevent all dementias. So I was giving a lecture in Harvard some 15 years ago, and I told the audience that if we can prevent just 10%, that is 250 cases, that would be wonderful. Just 10%. It happens to yourself, your family members, or your friend, that would be wonderful. The cost saving is tremendous. And you can, for those with dementia, you can increase the quality of life. It's also be excellent. So we in fact embarked on the first study in Asia. But from the outset, we faced a lot of problems, a lot of skepticism. People say it's impossible. And I was giving a lecture at Cambridge University. I was giving a research down there first almost 30 years ago. And I asked the professor of psychiatry at Cambridge, what is the life expectancy of someone with dementia? If you diagnose dementia today, how long will a person live? He told me 5 years. In 1990, when we set up the first memory clinic in Asia in NUH, 1990 to now, with 30 years of data in NUH, we realized that the life expectancy in Singapore of people with dementia is not 5 years. On the average, is 12 years. I look after a professor of medicine in NUS. He went on for 17 years. And my patient who lived the longest, someone with dementia, went on for 21 years with good quality of life. Then the question asked in the World Health is, why is that the Singapore data seems much longer than the one in Cambridge? Well, from our Singapore data, we realized, firstly, almost all my patients with dementia seen in NUH or in my clinic in Farrer Park are sent back home and looked after by the family members. In contrast to in England, where I worked for many years, patients often sent to the homes, aged homes. So the family cannot look after people with dementia. And also those who come to our clinic, we realize that for a long time, that many of these patients had also high blood pressure and also diabetes. So I used to work with a geriatrician, and she will help me to stabilize high blood pressure and diabetes. And also we advise the family members about diet, advise them on how to prevent falls, and ask them to do something like exercise, even music therapy. So we combine all this together to help the patient. So with all this in mind, we think that maybe there are possibilities that we can prevent dementia if we know all these risk factors. But we have difficulties in getting funding. The government has no funding. I went to talk to people in the ministry. They said, we have funding only if you have a patient. With no patient, there's no funding. I told them that we have people who are high risk, the pre-dementia phase, and we can identify these people who are high risk of dementia. We can do something to these people, we can prevent it. So eventually we have some friends who helped me out. And the first study was conducted at Jurong Point. Jurong Point Mall was then managed by the Lee Kim Ta family. They're a very, very philanthropic family, and they gave us a space at Jurong Point Mall. And people who come to see us is free. In contrast to seeing a person in NUH, once you enter my clinic, NUH, you must pay me $200. But in Jurong Point, it's free. We call it Training and Research Academy, TARA, TARA. So people know about it. The space is the cost about $7,000 a month, and the family paid for it. After all, they own the mall. So we're very glad for the family, people in Singapore who are very compassionate. And also the Kuan Yin Hut Cho Temple gave us $2 million. Most of us go there as researchers. We are paid for by NUS, but we need to pay the nurses who work down there. So we were given some money. So what we did was we asked the nurses to go around Jurong Point Mall. There are about 50 blocks of flats surrounding the mall. So the nurses will go to every block and to every flat and knock on the door. If there is an old person with 60 years above, we invite the person to the Jurong Point shopping mall at our research center called TARA. And we will assess them. The assessment will take 2 days. They come first day 2 hours, second day also 2 hours. A very thorough physical assessment. The psychologist will do very thorough memory assessment, also measuring their weight, their strength, the walking. Very, very detailed assessment done. So probably at that time, the most detailed assessment of an old person here in Singapore was done at the Jurong Point shopping mall. So what we did was, the first part of it, those who had high risk, those who have a family history of dementia, those who have also a history of high blood pressure, diabetes, and also with a history of memory problems, we invite them for a health talk. First thing was health talk. All of them came for health talk. And so they come weekly for a health talk. And one day we'll talk about diabetes. Next week, we talk about high blood pressure. Next week, we talk about diet. So everything is different, and it's pitched at the level of these people. Most of the people around the shopping mall are people who are working class people who work in the factories, some with very low education. So when we pitch at that level, so we had a professor of family medicine who helped work together with a lot of volunteers to pitch the level of the health education for the people at Jurong Point. So we teach them that. So, and once they finish the health education, we divide them into 4 groups. Tai Chi, one group do Tai Chi, one group do mindfulness meditation, one group do music therapy, one do art therapy. And we found out what happened to them after a month, 3 months, 9 months. And this is what we found. Oh, I think I missed up the slide. Can I get back again? All right. What we found was after about 1 month, we measured not only the memory, but also the rate of depression and also anxiety. We found that those with mild depression improved within a month, all right? And then after about 3 months or to 4 months, almost all of those who are on music, mindfulness, meditation, art, and Tai Chi improved. After 3 months, all improved. And after 1 year, the memory decline was only about 60% of them, sorry, 40% of them. 20% of them, the memory improved. So our hypothesis was, with all these, we expect maybe 10% will improve. But now it looks like 20% of them improved. And 20% of them remain about the same, and 40% of them decline. Whatever we do, there will be a large proportion of those people above 60 whose memory will continue to decline. But if we can improve 20%, that would be marvelous. But what we're going to do is, everyone asks us, can you show us what we call the biological change? We do a brain scan. So what we did was we did a brain scan for them. These are the people, this is the 0.0. This group are people with health education, this group of people with mindfulness meditation, all right? The person who helped us conduct was the late Mr. Wisinto, was NUS vice president at that time, and an expert in mindfulness meditation, been doing it for the last 20 years. And after 3 months, we realized when we do the brain scan again, we showed that even with health education, there's increase in number of all these nodal activities, which increase the brain activities. But there's more of these brain activities in the people who do mindfulness meditation. So this has been published, and it's the first time in the world, I think our previous president, Professor Tan Chor Chuan, was very excited. He asked me for the data, and this is the first time. There are other studies done on the brain for people doing mindfulness meditation. Those are mainly data from North America, and they are data on young people, it's university students. This is the first time we've done this elderly people and in an Asian population. And the data has been published, and some of you have read it. It came out in newspapers about 3 weeks ago. And then we also find out that when you do meditation, there is change of the colony of bacteria in our gut. In our stomach or in our gut, we have lots of bacteria. There are good bacteria and there are bad bacteria. The bad bacteria causes diarrhea and fever in us. The good bacteria secretes also some chemicals that goes to our brain and helps us in our brain function and improve our mood, like serotonin, improve our mood. So we found that in the mindfulness study, and there's an increase in number of all these good bacteria. And once again, this is the first study in the world, and the paper is now being prepared for publication. The next one is on art therapy. So this is another interesting study conducted at the National Gallery. We want to find out whether when you go to National Gallery, will it improve the brain function? Well, this was in fact a study prompted by our friend Professor Tommy Ko. Tommy Ko emailed me once, and he said that there's a study in New York in which they were trying to prevent the deterioration of brain function of people with dementia. People with dementia, they brought them to the art gallery in New York. They call it the Museum of Modern Art, where the paintings of Picasso's are down there. And he says that the study is going on. Would you want to do the same study in Singapore? Because the time Professor Tommy Ko was then the chairman of the National Arts Council. So I told Professor Ko, I think we should do something. We cannot just follow the Americans. We got to do something better than them. Firstly, the American study did not include any kind of brain scan. We're going to do some brain scan. The American study is doing on people who already have dementia. But we will take people with high risk of dementia, and we do brain scan to find out whether there's a change. And for this study, in the American study in New York, they use the paintings of Picasso. But Singapore, I said, we better use different kinds of painting. And you might have seen this painting. It was on television recently. It's called Upper Nama Awak Kamu, Upper Nama Kamu. Now, when we show this painting to a lot of old people, I'm sure Mr. Jeremy Sia will know. Look at this painting, you know that it's sometime in the 1960s. Why? Because between 1963 and 65, Singapore was part of Malaysia. Now, in fact, I told some of my medical students that, these are medical students from RI, I told them at one time Singapore was part of Malaysia. I said, are you sure? See our students, their knowledge of history is not too good. Between 63 and 65, Singapore was part of Malaysia. And the Malaysian government decreed that all students, if you want to go to university, you must pass the Malay language. So everybody want to study Malay quickly. I remember that I also had to go to night class to pick up my Malay. And so you certainly remember. So in this study on art and reminiscence, we showed them a picture and asked them, do you remember this scene? So they say, oh, remember, yes, 1960s. And you see the way the students dress, you see this lady who goes to attend the class so well dressed. Nowadays, I tell you, you come to the NUS, students coming to lectures, they come in t-shirts, shorts, with sandals. But in those days, they come even for the tuition properly attired. I'm not too sure about all of you. I'm sure Jeremy will remember those days we're properly attired. Now things have changed now. If you come in t-shirts, singlets, and shorts and sandals, they come to lectures. But so people remember all these incidents very well. And the other painting we showed to them is this painting also on CNA television recently. It's called, I think it's about the health inspector coming. They call it a Igu, the toad coming. So when the old people look at this, straight away they laugh, they remember this scene. This scene is supposed to be somewhere in Chinatown. And it's the same also in Malaysia, in my hometown in Batu Pahat. The hawkers are at the mercy of the health inspectors. They'll come and chase them away. In some towns, they got to bribe the health inspector. If the health inspector don't come, they will have to go and bribe the policemen who come also harass them. And poor chap, all these hawkers in Singapore, Malaysia, went through a rough time. And I'm so glad that CNA has a television in terms of reminiscence about the life of this, how hard life is for the hawkers. So although we put them all together in a cleaner place, in a hawker center, in the past it was all spread out in the community, in the marketplace. So when the old people see this, they talk about it, they remember, and it's wonderful. It stirred up a lot of memories in all of them. And what we did was, once again, before they start, we scan the brain before and after. The paper was published just last week, right? And the newspaper people are very keen, and the principal investigator is Professor Rati Mahindran. There'll be a press statement next week will come out about this study on art and how it helps to improve the brain function of people. The next one is a study on choir singing, choral singing. And I think some of you may remember this lady here. This is Professor Maureen Sarkop. She's an active member of the NUS Seniors Choir. And she raised about $300,000 or $400,000 for us to do a study. Her proposal is that if you come together for choral choir singing, can you improve the brain function? Can you also improve the mood? Well, if you think about it, you say, well, it's possible, and a lot of people are doing that for many years now. But everybody looks for, is there any scientific study? So you may say, well, I know in your church, you have people who sing in choir, they look very well, but the world is looking for scientific evidence. So once again, we recruited the old people at Jurong Point study, the TARA study. And it's a randomized control, one group just health education, another group will be choir singing. You have no choice, So some of them told me they never sung their life, so never mind, we trained them. And we had a wonderful conductor called Darius Lim. And Darius is a wonderful Singapore jet who gone for training and even conducted at the Carnegie Hall in New York City. So he taught them all, sing together. And now this group had performed at Jurong Point during the Chinese New Year. And they also performed to the Prime Minister at Amokyo Community Center, and also even at the Chime itself. So it's very wonderful. So once again, we assessed them before and after. The brain scan result is now being assessed at Cambridge. The Cambridge professors are very keen, but we also assess their mood. Many of them, we found that their depression rate improves. And more importantly is that they come to know each other better. Before the study, all of them were living in flats in Jurong. They don't know each other. But now they come to know each other. We say that the social connectivity has improved. And most important is that the young old, those between 65 to 74, are caring for the old. So the sense of compassion, which is very, very important in later life, that the young old are caring for the frail elderly. So you'll get more of this result coming out later on. I want to move on to another study that we did. And this study is called the Horticultural and Mental Well-being Study. It started off with a visit by old people to Gardens by the Bay, and it's about slightly more than a year ago. The permanent secretary at Gardens by the Bay, Mr. At the National Parks, Mr. Benny Lim, he was very interested and asked me whether I could bring old people to Gardens by the Bay. And I told him that if National Development Ministry could give us a small grant, we can do a study to find out whether gardening or horticulture can improve the brain function of old people. So we brought them to Gardens by the Bay. We also teach them how to grow vegetables and flowers, and visit botanical gardens. Some of them, you'll be amazed, told me that they've never been to the botanical gardens, although they've been living in Singapore for the last 50 years. They just work and work at the factories in Jurong Point, at Jurong. And they were so glad to be able to be bused from Jurong Point to Gardens by the Bay, and we also gave them high tea, give them free admission. And in this study, we want to make it different. We took some of the blood of the old people to assess whether the immune system improved after 3 months or 6 months. And we found that, in fact, besides improving in memory, there's improvement in the immune system. We call it the interleukin 6. All right. This study, once again, has been published in the World's Journal, and it excited a lot of people that gardening can improve the immune system. Then you're less likely to have flu or cold. And this result's been publicized by the BBC in England. They interviewed me and said, "Is it true? We read this in the international journal, the Singapore study. The first study to show that gardening can improve the immune system of the body." So I'll come back to this again. Now, with the increasing number of all these results coming out, Mrs. Teo Ji Hian, our patron of the Mind Science Centre, suggested that the studies that have been successful in Jurong Point on art, music, hygiene, mindfulness, you should extend it to other constituencies. So this is what we call a translational research. So you see, from Jurong Point, the same study is replicated at Tampines, Queenstown, Eunos, Hougang, Bishan, and the Kong Min San, Pokasi Temple area, Upper Thomson area. So this is translated out. And the big challenge is, in the Jurong study, we have a lot of professors who volunteer. Here, we train the people in the ground. We train the volunteers. Some of them are retired teachers, nurses, who are trained to deliver the health education, the mindfulness practice, the horticultural therapy. And this is the first time, no place in the world has done this before. There are 3 centers in the world doing dementia prevention: Singapore, Helsinki, and Paris. It's only the Singapore study that extends outside of the research center into the community, like here in all the six centers. So this is called translational research, and this is very important because people often complain that lots of money is spent on research. What is the relevance of all this research that people are doing in the university? So we tell people that this study, although research comes from donation, it is of relevance to people in Singapore because they can prevent, not only control their hypertension, control their diabetes, also prevent their dementia, improve their mood, their depression, and anxiety. And so there are 5 conditions. You control the hypertension, control your diabetes, prevent the dementia, lift up the mood for depression, and reduce your anxiety. Now, dementia, I said we cannot control all dementia. Even if it's 10 or 20%, that's excellent. Anxiety is very, very important because now with the COVID-19, lots of old people and young people have anxiety. And during the lockdown, worse. The people are getting more tense, very anxious, they cannot sleep. And people will tell you that business is down, people are worried. So this anxiety, I call it COVID anxiety, that affects even old people. So these are things they can do. I was watching this morning American television, CNN. They're telling people to do some gardening, something we have done already. They published it. They're asking people to do some music. We've already done it already. So whatever we have done, we published in world literature. People are picking up all of this and helping their own people. I think that's wonderful. I want to move on to another study which is halfway through. It's called Nature and Mindful Awareness Study, NUMUS. So this study came on after the, let me get on back to this one again. You see the therapeutic garden from our studies is here. NParks has started therapeutic gardens. There are 5 of the therapeutic gardens in Singapore, one at Fort Park, I think one more in Tiong Bahru, another somewhere on the west side, I think it's a UT area. There are 5. And this is special for seniors because you go to the gardens, there's something for smell, some for touch, some for taste, all the 5 senses down there. So it's something wonderful. And so the Nature and Mindful Awareness Study, it came about from our gardening. I met up with our previous Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Abdullah Tamuji, and the chairman of NParks, Mr. Benny Lim, and asked them, why not we do another study? I love to go to the botanic garden, especially the rainforest. And I told them, can we bring a group of old elderly people? You see here, some of them are retired civil servant, retired professors. We go to the gardens and then find out what happened to them, to their physical health, their mental health, and also their social health. Because many of them don't know each other. Now, after walking for 10 weeks, they seem to know each other better. And also I told them, can we have someone from NParks, one of their researchers to come along with us, who will tell us what trees are this. Is this the Tembusu tree, or is it the Julotong tree, the Cinchona tree, so that we learn about the trees and also learn about the flora and fauna of the rainforest. And if people begin to love the rainforest, and I think in other countries, then they may not want to destroy the rainforest. The hypothesis is if you love the rainforest, you won't destroy the rainforest, and that'd be wonderful for humanity. I make this suggestion in a World Congress when I was talking about our Singapore study. And the chairman of the Congress was a man professor from Brazil. He told me that is the most wonderful proposition because he said, one of the reasons we're having global warming is because of the destruction of the rainforest. And he said, there in Brazil, the Amazon rainforest, people are destroying it. One of the causes of global warming is the destruction of the rainforest. And you may not know that, I hope if you all visit the Botanic Gardens, walk into the rainforest. It's near to the Casa Verde Cafe, the Nassim Gate. And you will realize that in the world today, there are only two cities in which there is a rainforest in the city. One is Singapore, the other is Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So we should treasure this rainforest. So we walk through the rainforest, and with all these seniors here, and some of them are the Speaker of Parliament, some of them are very senior government officials. And we realized that during the COVID-19 lockdown, they began to care for one another. Not only do they develop a compassion for trees, they also develop a compassion to care for one another. A few of the people in this group are widows or widowers who live alone. So other people will ring up, can I help you to buy your grocery? Can I get a mask for you? And so this kind of empathy is very, very important. People talk about aging in place. So I helped the NParks for the last few years. And so they told me that I would like to reward you by asking you to plant a tree in Hot Park. So I selected a tree with my 2 grandkids and my wife here. And I selected a tree, the nutmeg tree. And then the manager of the park said, why do you select the nutmeg tree? Well, I told him that The reason why we are speaking English today is because of the nutmeg tree. Because 600 years ago, there was also a pandemic in Europe. They call it the Black Death, due to the bubonic plague, spread by fleas and rats. And there was no cure 600 years ago for the plague. And someone told the people in Europe, the cure for the plague is the juice of the nutmeg tree, or the nutmeg. All right. So they were all of them rushed down. The Portuguese, the first came, if you remember your history, the Portuguese, Vasco da Gama rounded the Cape of Good Hope. And the Portuguese, and he came down to Goa in India. And then the Portuguese fleet under Alfonso de Albuquerque came to Malacca in 1511 and conquered Malacca. And the first thing he did after the conquest of Malacca was to send 2 ships to the Moluccas Island in Indonesia, looking for nutmeg. Nutmeg was in an island called Run. So after the Portuguese, the Dutch came, and then the English, and so people were looking for a cure. Obviously, we know that the juice of the nutmeg did not cure the bubonic plague. But this is to let you know that a lot of things in the history in our garden that's wonderful that we can learn about. And in fact, the botanic garden is so interesting. I didn't realize it until some years ago. I was chief examiner here in Singapore in medical school in psychiatry. And in Singapore, we often have external examiners come to university so as to maintain a standard. And our external examiner come from England or Australia. And one day, one of the chap from London came down, and the exam ended about 12 o'clock. He said, can you bring me to the botanic gardens? I said, it's so hot, They don't always look at a tree. He was looking for a tree called the Havia Brasiliensis. I think if anyone you outside there in the audience or Malaysian, you know, because we studied this in Sec 1 in geography. Havia Brasiliensis is the rubber tree. And you may not know, but the rubber tree, the huge multi-billion-dollar rubber industry in Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, it originated from the botanic gardens. Almost 100 years ago, the British smuggled some rubber trees from Brazil to the Kew Gardens in London. And from there, I think about 30 saplings were taken down to the botanic gardens and grown here. And from here, it moved on to the first plantation. Apparently, it was in Malacca itself. So the people are so interested in the rainforest and botanic gardens. Okay, I want to move on quickly. Now, the Singapore diet. I was talking to Jeremy earlier on. In every meeting that I go to give a talk, someone asks me what kind of diet is good for the prevention of dementia. And so we are doing some research on this, and we are going to find out what kind of diet, how can we improve the diet. But I think we should be proud of our diet. I think I was talking to Jeremy also that I had a relative from Malaysia who came down for treatment here at NUH, and he was on the last stretch, and he was quite dying really from cancer. And I look at the food in NUH, I say, this is not very good. He wants to eat char kway teow and char siu pao. Give to him. After all, it's not many days to live, So we're trying to do something, whether we can improve our hawker food. You see here, this is at Jurong Point Mall, and at level 4, there's a restaurant called Malaysia Boleh. And the boss is this man here, Tan Fei Siong. And Fei Siong invited some of our researchers together. Wonderful food. You have a Penang Kway Teow, we have also popiah and all that, a clang, bak kut teh. And so we're trying to see whether we can have some of this and maybe include it in the hospital diet. The research is still in progress. Another one is Chinese tea. I love Chinese tea. And we've done a study to show that those who drink tea has less deterioration of brain function. Now the question is, what kind of tea? And our study found no difference, whether it's a pu'er tea or green tea or Sri Lankan tea. The study in Netherlands or Belgium found that it is pu'er tea that's better. The Japanese claim that the green tea is better, but our study found no difference. And so we think in general that tea has some qualities to prevent the the death of brain cells, and that will help us in our brain function. Another study in progress is calligraphy. This calligraphy study was suggested about 2 years ago, but now because of the pandemic, difficulty in getting people together. But this is work in progress. It's a very interesting study with, that we're linking up with people in the community itself, and we'll let you know when the results come out. Okay, I want to move on to just the end now, and this is a study that is going on. It's around the Toi area, Toi Drive, near Beauty World. This study came about because a dentist spoke to me and said, hey, don't you know that dental health is very good, very important for old people? I said, definitely. And now we realize there is a theory that poor dental health lead on to infection of your mouth, and infection spreads along the big vessels of the brain and affects the blood supply of the brain and makes you more prone to depression and also dementia. So there's ongoing study going on. And then we realized that it's no use just doing a piece of for dental problem, a piece for brain. Why not we have a total assessment of the old person? And at the in NUS here in the Tower Block or NUH, we have the biggest group of concentration of experts in this part of the world. So we asked the eye specialists to come along and join us to assess the eye. Also the ENT people, the ear, nose and throat specialists. We also have the heart specialist, the bone specialist for osteoporosis, and even people for the stomach area, and also people in terms of gait, and sociologists, anthropologists. The whole team is so big now. This is the probably only center in the world that there's the highest concentration of researchers, and all this is to do a study whether we can age in place. And we realize that aging in place is something that we must know in terms of knowing the generation. So whether the family can come together to support the old person, the family, and also the community. So we call the study Community Health and Intergeneration Study. And we want to find out whether when people are living in a place, can they stay on, enjoy the birds on there, their friends, you know, but you have to make sure that the family itself, the people in the family want to care for the old person. Some years ago, some RI boys came to see me and they said, we heard about your research in old people. Can we join you in some research? So let us do something simple. Let's do a survey in your class and find out in your class how many people are staying with their grandparents and how many people are not staying with grandparents. And then we find out the attitude of them. We found that those people who don't live with their grandparents, their attitude towards aging is very negative, because they say they watch television and they always see the minister visiting old people's home, day center. Old people are lying in bed, frail. To them, once you pass 65, you're sick and frail. That's not true. Most people about 65, like myself, we are still healthy, still working. But those people who live with their grandparents, they have more positive attitudes towards aging. You know? And even tell in the survey that they're eager to look after their parents or their grandparents when they grow old. Whereas the one who never lived with their grandparents felt that maybe people who are old should stay in old people's home rather than stay with the family. So there are many people in the community, in family, they don't know very much of the family. Yesterday, I was running my clinic in the university center, and I asked a student, a law, I think it's art student, what's your father doing? Well, my father works in a factory. Which factory is that? What do they do? I don't know. My mother is doing admin work. Which company? I don't know. We don't know very much. So, so I said, what do you do then? When we often stay at home, I do my computer, and we maybe eat separately. So although they're living in the same family, they don't know about their parents. So we're going to do a study now, how we can build up intergenerational study. And we're doing it together with our anthropologists, and also something on voluntarism. And the question is whether we can change behavior and values in the community. I want to move on very quickly. Okay, so So we're thinking something about all this research, but you realize that in China, they have thought about this more than 3,000 years ago, about these three deities that represent longevity, prosperity, and happiness. But what we want to know is to do whether we can age well and live happily. I'm going to move somewhere because my battery of this laptop is running very, very low. So whether we can age well and age happily. But you look at the three deities, I think I said that the Chinese knew about this long time ago, that you want to have prosperity, you want to have good health, and you also want to have happiness. But it's important also to realize that maybe the ancient Chinese have forgotten that all the three deities are a bit overweight. And all of them are men. Most of the old seniors who live beyond 80 years are the women. So they're not right that area. All that I've said is in this book called The Colors of Aging. It's been published, it's been reviewed in the British Journal. And the reviewer said this book should be read by Bill Gates. Because 2 years ago, Bill Gates told the world that he will give $100 million to whoever can find a drug for the prevention of dementia. So the reviewer, who is a professor in London, said you can never find a drug for the prevention of dementia, but you should actually look at this study done in Singapore on what they have done for the prevention of dementia. And so if you have the time, you can, at least in our library itself. But the reviewer also mentioned that this book is second to him. To him, a better book is a book that I wrote some years ago called Listening to Letter from America. And this is based on a true story of the Singapore elderly who survived the Second World War, and a story of elderly people who are resilient. And it's based on true story. And when I wrote this novel some 10 years ago, I couldn't find any publisher. And they said, one publisher from the Straits Times, the editor rang me and said, I heard you have got a manuscript. I said, yes, it's about, she asked me, what is the story all about? I told her it's about elderly people. He said, oh, nobody reads elderly people in Singapore. Singaporeans read two kinds of books, stacks and ghosts. Nothing about aging. Don't. So eventually publisher published it. And it took a long time. And suddenly somebody from America, the professor of anthropology from America, a chap called Michael Fisher, read his book, and he said he used his book now in America. This is the only novel in Singapore used in America, in Harvard University, in a course on anthropology, about old people, about resilience. And you may ask me why Letter from America. Letter from America is the longest radio program in the world. Started in 1946 until a few years ago when the journalist called Alistair Cook died. And one of the person I interviewed in Chinatown was an old doctor, and he told me that I'm almost blind. I'm 80 years old. I cannot watch television, but I love to listen to the BBC program Letter from America about the situation in North America. And this old doctor from Singapore said, I'm so amazed that this journalist now, almost 80, 90 years old, will still speak to the world about America. So I wrote all the stories of old people who survived the war, and the novel is called Listening to Letter from America. And I tell you what, it was read by a friend of mine sent it to our late President S.R. Nathan. S.R. Nathan read it, and he sent me a note and said, hey, Dr. Kwa, could I invite you for lunch? I said, sure, President, since you're going to pay for it. So one day we invited for dinner, and he wanted to see me because he said that some of you may know that S.R. Nathan grew up in Moa, which is quite near to my hometown, Batu Pahat. And he told me that every time he come to Singapore, he passed to Batu Pahat, he stopped over at a shop owned by my granddad. And he would have a chat with the person down there, my grandfather. And so we had an interesting conversation about the days of his youth. Although I never see my granddad, he passed away in the war. But it's an interesting story for you to think about, to read about. It's also available in the library. So I think, Jeremy, I've finished now and I'm waiting for questions from all of you.
Thank you, Prof. It is indeed a very interesting talk that you have gave us. A lot of points that we can take from there. For participants, if you have any questions for Professor Kwa, please type in your questions. Prof, I have a question here. Is PSP, pulmonary supranuclear palsy, a form of dementia?
Well,
Can its effect
that's
be
right.
slowed down?
Well, this it's not a very common condition. It's one of the causes of dementia, but it's not a very common. The commonest kind of dementia we have in Singapore and around the world is Alzheimer's disease. All right, Alzheimer's disease runs in a family, and it's a very slow illness. All right, and it's the majority. And the second commonest is the dementia linked to stroke. All right, after a stroke, part of the brain dies, and you develop dementia. The third commonest is a combination of Alzheimer's disease and the stroke dementia. Supranuclear palsy is not common. Just like people ask me many times, is Parkinson's a cause of dementia? Parkinson is also a cause of dementia, but not common. All right. The other causes of dementia, head injury. So you find that dementia is commoner among boxers, football players in America, very prone. England are more prone to dementia. A couple of very well-known football players, you hit the ball, you knock the head injury. Also, people who drink a lot, alcoholic dementia, and also people who are deprived of, or who don't take a balanced diet. And I've seen quite a number of people referred to me from old people's home with a deficient in vitamin B12 and folic acid. Folic acid is found in vegetables. Folate is foliage, so vegetables. So supranuclear palsy, not common.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Another question we have here is, have you done any study on Mahjong and dementia? The link between Mahjong or games playing and dementia?
I'm not too sure who asked that question, but this was a paper, was the first paper published by our team about 15 years ago. We won a big prize in a world prize on research, and we went to Osaka to receive the prize. And before I went to receive the prize, I was a phone call from the Prime Minister's office, Mr. Lim Boon Heng, Minister. He said, "Are you sure I read in the newspaper that all of you won this prize about Mahjong is good for the brain?" And he said, "When you come back after receiving the prize, I'll have a chat with you." So I had a long chat when I came back with Mr. Lim Boon Heng, and I told him it's true. You know, it's the study that we found that people who play Mahjong has less decline. Then people say, is it really about playing Mahjong, or is it the social interaction? Well, it can be both. People who besides the coming together, there's less isolation. You know, you come together, you chat with your friend. And also in Mahjong, you must also help you in the memory, isn't it? You must know what kind of tiles your friend throw down. You keep them, you know. So a lot of memory work involved, but also the social interaction. You know. I want to believe in both, because sometimes in a meeting, the strong debate, some people say, no, it's nothing to do with Mahjong, it is social interaction. But I like to believe it's both. And well, because we did a study and give us a lot of, the other study we did, which I didn't tell you about, because there's so much data to give you. We did a study, we found that those people who eat curry are less likely to have a memory problem. Reason being, curry has turmeric and curcumin, and those are very strong antioxidant, good for the brain. And so now, in fact, you go to cold storage or some of the pharmacy, you can buy curcumin or turmeric capsule. You can eat it. But I can tell you that last night I told Mr. Jeremy Sia that last night I gave a talk to the Millionaires Club in Singapore, and I knew this question will come out. Someone asked me, "Hey, what about coconut oil?" I tell you it will come out, and I tell people that okay, coconut oil, but it's not just coconut oil by itself. Not only just playing Mahjong by itself. You cannot say I just play Mahjong. I don't care. I just can't bother other diet. It's a combination of all. So remember what I mentioned to you, the study in a Jurong Point First is health education. Health education stabilizes your high blood pressure, the diabetes, your diet. Second part of it, you do mindfulness meditation or mindfulness practice. Very simple. If you have any difficulty, you just go and Google Mind5, M-I-N-D, Mind, 5-F-I. One of NUS students has done this app. It's for free. You can do it for 5-10 minutes on simple meditation. That's to calm your brain down, reduce anxiety. So there's something that we can do. And the third one is exercise. So remember these three: health education, exercise, and mindfulness, and exercise. These three. And often you combine your art and music. And that'd be wonderful.
In the related questions, which is not typed in here, what about exercise? Is there any research that links exercises based?
That's right. So
Exercises?
you remember I mentioned about the Jurong study with Tai Chi exercise.
Yes, right.
Right.
So,
So everybody thought that Tai Chi exercise will be the first activity that the old people will cause an improvement. Of the 4 activities, art, music, Tai Chi, and mindfulness, we thought the exercise would be so wonderful that the mood or the depression rate will drop quickly, exercise. But it turned out to be music, the one. Most people enjoy the music first. Exercise was last, which is very amazing, because some of you may remember that the trouble is most people, Mr. Jeremy Sia, most people don't read newspapers now. Straits Times readership has dropped down. It was in the newspaper because we published it in a World's Journal about the Jurong study. And then now CNA, our Channel News Asia, make a program with this actor, director called Adrian Pang. You heard Adrian Pang? Yes, right. So Adrian Pang was asked to do a program on our study at Jurong Point. So he came, his crew interviewed me and all that. Then he went on to Jurong Point, interviewed old people. And he said, oh, this is very strange. He said, I thought that exercise would be number one. All of you will enjoy exercise and then do it well. And then your mood will improve, memory improve. But it looks like exercise, the last one to improve. Why? And then the old people told him, we don't like this kind of exercise. We don't like Tai Chi. You tell us dancing, we'll enjoy dancing. So it's what kind of exercise you like to do. Some people enjoy dancing. Some people do enjoy meridian flapping. Some people, they're just walking. So whatever you choose, rather than force them. So in the Jurong study, we told them, you have no choice. You have to do Tai Chi. So this is our choice, no choice thing comes is difficult. So by choice, most of them prefer dancing. And so we are thinking of, should we launch a study on dancing? And we thought maybe this could be helpful. Okay, exercise, very important.
okay, thank you, Prof. A question for you right here. What can you suggest seniors should do now to cope with anxiety during this pandemic?
Okay, all right. So once again, this was in the Straits Times. They asked me. I got the 7 habits of effective methods to reduce COVID anxiety. I think remember when this came out, we were all in the quandary of where's the news? There's got news from here and there. So the first thing I tell people is get on to the right source. Don't listen to all the kind of news people send to you, social media about there's a case, whether in a particular mall or the neighborhood. There's a lot of fear. I mentioned in a talk it's on television, that it's on channel 8. That there's not only the COVID pandemic, there's also a pandemic of fear. All right, how to reduce the fear? The fear is worse when you get wrong information. So I tell people that listen to the MOH website and look at it. They tell you that. So every night I will just at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, just listen to the one channel and it's all. Other people look at it. Our CNA, BBC, they look at so many channels, seeing all the bad news, get more frightened. So just listen to this one, right? The second part, I mentioned to them that I think it's important for us to be occupied with something. So I think whether you're doing gardening, you're doing art and music. The third part also to be involved also in some mindfulness meditation to calm your mind down. And then also your diet, make sure you have a balanced diet. Fifthly, also if you can, have a sense of care, of compassion for other people. Look around for other friends. If you are a younger person and you look at neighbors living alone, ask them what you can do. This sense of compassion, you call it loving kindness, is very good. You feel better that you're helping somebody. All right? And I think this is about the 5 main important ones we need to do. And also, as mentioned, the relaxation therapy is important for us. Right? And I think this kind of a webinar is important that you can raise any question and your friends can discuss it with you and not to be socially isolated.
Thank you, Prof. A question on the book, Listening to Letters from America. Is it available in our library?
Yes, Listening to Letter from America. Letter from America, the BBC program, is available in our library. If you cannot, you can. It is published by a British. Now it's published by a British company called Austin Macaulay, but it's available in our library. I hope it's accepted by the library. So it's down there, and I tell the people at NUS. It's used in Harvard and NUS. They don't even know it. Some people, So it's only novel to use in Harvard. Why don't you use it here? Yes.
Okay. We got one more question. Okay, we got 2 more questions before we end the sessions. One is, how about word puzzles and Sudoku?
All right. So all these are for mental stimulation, and I think it's fun to have all this stuff. I think it helps you, but this is only one of many things you must do. And you have to do crossword puzzle is very good. I think people enjoy doing, but actually I find that it's better if they do games, board games like Scrabble. So I have a doctor who have dementia. So I told a dentist with dementia. So I told the wife to play Scrabble with him. So the Scrabble score gave me a gauge of how much he's progressing or how much he's deteriorating. Right? So and that kind of words he used. But playing puzzle, all this also very interesting or very good. Or even playing chess, right? Something you use your brain. All right.
Okay. Can you explain, or this is an interesting question, can you explain why so many highly intelligent people, highly educated people are affected by dementia, Alzheimer's?
So it is now, it is both for educated and those of poor education. Sometimes education is depending on opportunities. I was giving a talk in my hometown, and a lot of very bright people, but because the opportunities were not there when they were very young, and so when they finish off from O-level, they're straight away they go for teaching. But some of us who have got opportunities, we go on to university. And I was given an opportunity. I got a shot over to England, and I fortunately got a place in Oxford. These are opportunities that come along our life. So it's not that the people in my hometown, they are not educated. They are educated. It's only that the opportunities are not there. And sometimes they were there, they didn't pick it up. So someone asked me, why you do geriatrics? I was trained as a child psychiatrist in Oxford, but I came over here in Singapore to work. There was a scholarship, so I applied and I got it in America. Then went to Harvard to geriatric. So similarly for people here, it's not. I'm not too sure of this argument about education. But why are some of the professors have dementia? Sometimes it runs in the family. I look after a professor of medicine. The sister, also my patient, also a very bright girl, and the sister, also a bright trio, all runs in the family. And I was asked to Malaysia to assess an elderly teacher, not elderly, a middle-aged teacher, and they're wondering whether could this be early onset dementia. And he was only about 50 years old or 49. And we found that in some Malay families, they marry within the family. I think the father and mother were both were cousins. So this kind of genetic predisposition make them more prone to dementia. And the parent also has dementia, so it runs in the family. So those that with people with high education, there's always a family history, or sometimes because they have a history of stroke, stroke, smoking, alcohol, stroke. Although they are highly educated, they enjoy the alcohol and all that, so they're more prone to dementia. But I think with all the information we have, I think we know that there are things that can be done. At one time after I did 20 years of research, I wanted to abandon this research on dementia and move on to depression, Because depression, the outcome is better. You know? I can do psychotherapy and medication, the patient recover. As a doctor, you will see a patient recover. At that time, about 20 years ago, we don't know very much of dementia. It was no man's land. And now we know that, hey, there are things we can do. And that's why we move on quickly to the prevention of dementia, rather than trying to get into it. Once dementia sets in, it's more difficult to lift them out of it. Easier when you are before that. And we found that the bigger prevalence of people, we are the pre-dementia phase. So now the good news is also that the Ministry of Health tells you that the prevalence of dementia is 10%. That means if there are 100 of you listening to me, 10 of you have dementia. But now we found that it's not true. You know, from our Jurong study, only 5%, half of it. You know, and if we can reduce the half to just 2%, it'd be wonderful. You know. So the many things. The good news is there are many things we can do now. We know some of the facts now, and so remember, is health education, maintaining your good health, blood pressure, diabetes, the diet, and then your exercise, and then the mindfulness are the three things. Obviously, you add in your Sudoku, your music, art, you know, that'll make it life more interesting. And attend all these talks chaired by Jeremy. It'll be wonderful for you.
Thank you, Prof. Prof, last question. This is about food. Does eating ginkgo helps?
The same question asked last night about ginkgo. You know, ginkgo. Well, the research been done. I've spoken to my Chinese friends who did the research on the ginkgo. They found that it may be helpful for the pre-dementia phase, before you have dementia. But once you have dementia, then it doesn't help at all. You know. But also the only caveat, the only caution you have for ginkgo is many old people also take a medication to thin the blood, you know, warfarin and all that. If you take this medicine because you have some heart problem, you got to be very careful because it prolongs the bleeding time. I have a patient who came to see me who complained of blood in the urine. And he said, he's seen a lot of doctors. So I asked one question, are you on ginkgo? Yes, no, take it off, take it off straight away. And the bleeding stops. So I think it may be helpful for pre-dementia, but people with dementia, you got to be careful, especially those who are on warfarin or any of the blood thinner. You know? Do you serve ginkgo in your restaurant, Jeremy?
No, we do not.
No, no. But food is a wonderful thing. We can spend another 1 hour on food and memory and we in fact have a publication. If you come to a department, you give a publication to the Mind Science Centre. There's a publication on food for the brain. And if you, I don't know whether May, the deputy director, is listening in, you can ask her for a copy. It's good.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Another question for you, Prof. Rediffusion was enjoyed by the older generation because of the stories that was told in dialects. What are your views on this speaking and using dialects? All
right. So see, when I went over to do the research in Chinatown, all of them spoke to me either in Hokkien or in Cantonese. You know. In fact, I interviewed, that storyteller, Leta Sa. Is it Leta Sa? The storyteller, the master storyteller. And he was in fact very angry, with the government. He said it affected his livelihood, he cannot speak. He said, how can he tell the story of the Three Kingdoms in Mandarin? It must be in Cantonese, and then it goes on and on. So, but now what he mentioned is very good in terms of storytelling. One of the ways I help a lot of people, those who are better educated, I tell them, in fact, a retired doctor, I told him that the wife complained to me that he's always sitting at home doing nothing, and he's grumbling. So I told him that why not you write the story of a life? And then he's a GP. He told me, well, my life as a GP is so boring. Not like you people, the professor, university, your life's so interesting. Mine is very boring. I said, never mind, you just write the story of how you become a medical student and how's your clinic, stuff like that. It's very interesting because he told us that he was a medical student during the war years, and he was a fourth-year medical student. And one day, in sometime December of 1942, he left the emergency department of SGH. And as he looked up in the sky, there was Japanese warplanes, coming in. They all ran for cover, and the Japanese dropped a bomb and killed 5 medical students. So he told us that his friends, they carried the bodies to behind the College of Medicine building, which is the present MOH building. You go behind MOH, there's a plaque down there that says, here is the burial ground of 5 medical students. So something which we never heard about. And then he said during the war years, the medical school, because the Japanese took over SGH, and the medical school moved on to Tan Tock Seng. And then the Japanese took over Tan Tock Seng again. Then the medical school moved on to Malacca. All right. So I confirmed with one of our professors in NUS, Professor Jajin Singh. And Jajin Singh said it's true. The historian. The medical school was in Malacca for 1 year. And so this person wrote all these things, all the stories of it, and he became very absorbed. He enjoyed, after that he could sleep well, and he even published a small little book. So he found that this is called narrative therapy. And he became, some of the anxiety, the fear he had in the war years came out, his anger, his sadness about things. But it's therapeutic. He came out, all his feelings came out. We call it a catharsis. And so this is a way that, so I tell old people, why not write a story of your life? If nobody want to buy, it's okay, but at least you can leave something for your legacy, for your children to read about the story of your life. And many people who are, in fact, I'm writing a story with the Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Abdullah Tamuji. We're walking in the gardens. At the end of the walk, we have coffee together, and we ask someone to speak on something. So someone talk about their life. And almost 80% of this group of baby boomers, in their youth, they come from very poor family. But now they become professors, become perm sec and all that. And it's interesting because their life, we didn't realize that the kind of background. And it's like the story of Singapore. In 65, Singapore was very poor. Now it come out. And so these people help out. And it's very, very therapeutic. And I hope the NUSS or the Project Club can think of something like that. Jeremy, you can take leadership in this. Let them all. By the way, the previous history professor, Jiang Haiding, he ran a course on narrative therapy. Call him back again to write it. And I think you'll come out with a very, very interesting story. And it's wonderful to understand people that, because sometimes the children don't realize that, wow, now he's staying in a big house and big condominium. He didn't realize the father and his youth went through difficult times and able to survive what we call an undefeated mind, mental resilience.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Are there any more questions from the participants? No more questions for Professor Kwa? Well, Prof, I'd like to say thank you very much for a very interesting afternoon. We certainly learned a lot from you, and we can get together later on. I'll try to find out some famous Teochew restaurants for us to dine. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the participants. Oh, there's some more questions coming in. Okay, now more questions. Sorry, Prof, you have to hang on for a while. What kind of food is advised to prevent dementia?
Good question, right? So I'm thinking about, as Jeremy talked about, what kind of Teochew restaurant food. So the Teochews like to eat fish. Of course, we prefer a pomfret. But salmon and a cod is high in omega-3, which is very good. But we also love vegetables. But this is where I disagree with our Teochew friend. The Teochews like to eat all those kiam chai, all those salted vegetables. And all this kiam chai is not very good for your blood pressure and all that. So we prefer broccoli. The broccoli is very good for the brain function, broccoli. And also nuts. All kinds of nuts are good. And also we're suggesting that you take a vegetable with a lot of leaf. So spinach is a very good vegetable. Well, some people say, well, this is so springy, very difficult. So I tell some of my patients, why don't you mince the spinach? For some old people, a problem with dentition. And the dental health is very important. So if you have a problem with dental health, they cannot chew properly. So why not you mince the spinach? So it's wonderful for them. And then fruits, I told them that things like grapes, the red grapes and black grapes better than the green grapes. So these are the things that, and of course I mentioned earlier about turmeric, curry, good, you know, and tea is great. Some friends had found that it asked me about coffee, you know. I don't drink as much coffee and tea, and I'm more partial towards green tea. You know? So I told them tea is something that I prefer. You know? So these are the, but many areas we haven't explored yet. Well, food is a big area, and another big area is traditional Chinese medicine. A lot of food and herbs and all that. So I often ask my friend Professor Hong Hai, who is the TCM expert at NTU, to come and join me in our talk. In fact, on the 9th of November, he is giving a talk from the Mind Science Centre. I don't know whether, I think May is listening now, in the Mind Science Centre, and Hong Hai is speaking on the ecology of longevity, and with a focus on TCM, and I hope to give you a head start, you know, on what, because they're limiting the number of people zooming in. Right? So this is about diet. There are many things we don't know about. We're doing a research on it.
Okay, so and follow up to that question, what about health supplements? Do they really help?
Right. So I think when I was working I was doing my research over at Harvard, I was the only one in the clinic who did not take any supplement. You know. Everybody will take vitamin E, but now they found that vitamin E has no relevance, so they'll stop now. You know. Other supplements like calcium, people take calcium. I tell people, if you have a low calcium blood level, then you take calcium. If your calcium in the blood level is normal, don't take calcium. You're only wasting your money. You have too much calcium, you're more prone to stone, kidney stone, gallstone. You're more prone to stones come hit you, right? And if you have a balanced diet, why do you need to take vitamin B12 or B6 if you're enough vegetables and all that? Sometimes the supplement are safe, but sometimes the supplement is in a capsule. The capsule causes irritation to the stomach. So some people complain of diarrhea, irritable bowel syndrome. So you've got to be very careful of the capsule itself.
Okay, that's great. One question for you, Prof. Is it possible to work with you on one of your studies?
Who is asking me the question? We have a lot of things going on. There are lots of the present moment, the Jurong study is winding down now, but it's the study at Toei area, the community and the intergenerational study is carrying on. You want to come as a volunteer, you can send me a note. Yeah? The other study at the Botanic Gardens is also going on. Let me know what you want to do. I welcome people to help us out, because I think it's good to do research that people who can volunteer, will benefit themselves also. And the research should benefit people. For example, this study in Jurong, now people in Indonesia will know about it, Malaysia, and also in China. You know, and it's, one extent, is non-drug approach, and it's things you can do. You know, you don't have to spend too much money. You know, right? And it's a non-drug approach. No side effects. You know, make sure you don't run too much before. That's all. Just walking exercise is all you need.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Any more questions from the panelists? Any more questions from the participants for Professor Kwa? Well, there isn't any, Prof.
Okay,
Anything else you'd like to add before we close the session, Prof?
Okay, so firstly, I want to thank all of you for your participation, and also Jeremy, Mr. Jeremy Sia, and the Graduate Club. So I hope you will not just listen. I think the worst thing is to just listen, go back home and sleep. I hope you spread the good news to other people. That, hey, there's a good news, you know, you can prevent dementia. These are things you can do. You don't have to take a drug, you know. As that reviewer of the British Journal said, you can do your exercise, you can do your mindfulness. Mindfulness, you don't have to go attend classes in India or Sri Lanka. You can download the app from the Google called MindFi, and also health education. You can read a bit of. You go to NUS Mind Science Centre. There's a lot of information about this study and what you can do. So tell your friends, tell your family, and so that you spread this way. Because if you are healthy, it's good for the country, it's good for the Ministry of Health. You can spend. In fact, someone told me, hey, you're now in the private sector, why do you do all this prevention? You're seeing less patients. I said, no, we don't. There's so many patients. We want, if people don't spend too much, don't go to the clinic, the queue in the outpatient clinic, the polyclinic is so long, you can reduce it. That'll be wonderful. The doctors are out now. I look after a lot of doctors who are almost burnt out now because of COVID anxiety, COVID-19. So long working hours for doctors, and they are so stretched. And even my own clinic in NUH itself is so packed with people. If we can reduce all this, that'll be a wonderful place. You save your money to see the doctors. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you, Prof, for a wonderful afternoon. And thank you, participants, for joining us in this talk. And thank you very much. And good evening, everybody.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.